Hello, everyone. Welcome back to, well, my studio, which looks very different than what you're used to if you've seen me before. But tradition is still tradition. So, welcome aboard. My name is Ariel, and we're going to talk about App Store optimization and maybe even Apple search ads today. But before we get started, and as we have people shuffle in, tell me what's in your cup and where you're from. I'm here in New York City. It's a little bit cloudy today, but all the curtains are shut, so I'm happy here. And I'm drinking something a little bit different. This is organic mint tea in my Appfigures mug, which I broke a little bit, but no one knows about this. So, a little bit of a different kind of tea this morning. What's in your cup? Where are you from? As we wait for people to shuffle in, I see the numbers going up, so we're going to get started very, very soon. And today is actually really, really straightforward. You're going to be asking me questions, and I'm going to be giving you answers about App Store optimization. Fun fact that I didn't really say, but a few days ago, I was kind of bored during lunch, and I took the Apple Search Ads certification program. So now I'm technically certified by Apple for search ads. It's funny. If you have any questions about that, also you can ask. But I did find something really interesting that I'll touch on later on in the stream if no one brings it up before. So tell me what's in your cup. Where are you from as we wait for people to shuffle in? And then we're going to start with the questions. There is a Q&A thing inside of YouTube, which I want to try and use. We'll see how that works. If you're not watching us on YouTube, because we're also streaming live on X, Twitter, X, and also on LinkedIn. So drop your question in the chat. I'll try to do all of the above. We'll see which one works the best. So if you have a question, drop it in the chat, and we'll get started very, very soon. Let's see where people are from. So where is everyone talking from? Let's see what we got. Ooh, I see a lot of questions in the chat. Hello from Poland. Hello, Poland, with the water. Water is fine. I see more questions in the chat than anything else. So maybe that means we're ready to get started. Hopefully you like my very plain background. As you can tell, I made some changes. I'm still trying to figure out how I can utilize this space as best as possible. So if you have any thoughts, or if there are any creators out there that you think have the most amazing set that is kind of like this, but nicer, please let me know. I'm looking for ideas, and I want to make this much nicer. And I don't really want to do a green screen. This is not a green screen. This is just normal lighting. So anyway, let's jump right in because I can see more questions that I can already answer. So I'm going to try and jump to the top so it's fair. But if you have a question, drop it in. I'm not even going to turn on the YouTube Q&A because we already have so many questions. But let's go. Let's see. And I'm going to bring these questions on the screen. So, this one escaped my screen because it's so big. In Search Ads Insights, can you go over the overlap and not advertising dropdowns and what the use cases are for those two? That's actually a great question to get started. So Search Ad Insights is our tool within and inside is with inside of Appfigures that shows you all of the keywords a competitor or a set of competitors are spending money on Apple search ads and are actually being displayed in the App Store, not just in their campaigns, which may or may not show, but actually showing up on the App Store. Let me show you what that looks like, and then we'll answer this question. So let me go back to my computer. I'll hide the chat for a brief moment, and let's see what we have here. So Search Ad Insights is over here. And let's pick a random selection of apps. Let's see what I have here. I don't even know what these are. I think these are from my last live stream. So noted, record. Let's do something a little bit different. Let's go into Keyword Inspector and look for a keyword. I'm going to look for fitness. And then we're going to try and see what the top apps are doing. And from here, we're going to use the shortcut and go directly into their paid keywords. And hopefully they're spending some money on search ads. I'm going to drop Apple out of this because they're not spending money on search ads. And once it loads, we'll take a look, and that'll explain these two filters, the overlap and not advertising, and why they're so useful. They're incredibly useful. I put out a guide I want to say a month or so ago, where I explained 7 different tactics for using this report and making more money with it or saving more money with it, both of which kind of give you the same thing, more money. And these two are actually a good component of it. So I see a few. Not everyone is actually advertising. Activity tracker is not, so we're going to toss activity tracker just to make things a little bit cleaner. And let's see. Let's see what we have here for the results. And then continuing from here. So now we have MyFitnessPal, which obviously is the heaviest spender here with almost 3,000 keywords. And then we have home workout, no equipment, not no equipment. Fun fact. 416, and then Fitbod Gym and Fitness Planner with 267, or 287, I should say. So now you have an interesting view here where one of the apps has all of the keywords and most of the apps have none of the keywords. And this, if you're advertising against a big company or a big competitor, this is probably realistic. So what I like to do is let's find all the keywords where I'm advertising. So let's say, for example, I'm home workout, no equipments. I want to find all of the keywords where I'm advertising and MyFitnessPal is advertising, because those are keywords that we're fighting over. And in these keywords that we're fighting over, MyFitnessPal is probably going to win, mostly because they likely have a bigger budget, they have a much larger campaign, and I don't really want to go up against them on the keywords that they're spending a lot of money on. So let's see if we can find keywords that they're spending a lot of money on. And those keywords, if I want to save money, I probably want to stay away from. So for example, that, very easy. They're at 62% of the share of impressions, which means that more than half of the time when you search for fitness, you will see an ad for MyFitnessPal. Now, that means they're spending quite a bit of money on it. And because they're doing that, if your budget is not big, you probably don't want to bid on this keyword. So drop this keyword, save the money, put it on some other keyword. And you can find that other keyword by the not advertising filter, but we'll get to that in a moment. So the filter is also useful, the overlap filter, for finding exactly the opposite. So finding keywords where you both are bidding on the same keywords, but they're not the biggest spender, and you can outbid them. So let's see, for example, something like woman. I don't think this is a relevant keyword in this particular case, so maybe we'll ignore it, but something like walk at home might be actually useful. So if walk at home is useful, they're only there 7.4% of the time. If you're thinking this is something that can work for me at a popularity of 22, kind of questionable, but maybe you should spend more money on this because you know that they're also spending, but they're not spending enough, which means they deemed it relevant. They thought it made sense, but they're not spending as much money as they could. So this is how you use the overlap filter. The not advertising filter is kind of the same, but in reverse. If you want to find opportunities where you could be spending a little bit more, where competitors are not advertising, and take more of that share of voice, this would be the same thing. So if you want to find all the keywords where MyFitnessPal is not advertising in, this is where I would look. So not advertising, MyFitnessPal, you see it drop to 0, and now you have a whole bunch of options, and you can figure out which ones are really most interesting to you. So exercise apps. This is interesting. I would not expect MyFitnessPal to not be in this race, but we can see that this app, home workout, no equipments, is only advertising a little bit, or is only being shown a little bit, I should say. This is a measure of how many times they're seen in the App Store, not how much they want to be seen. So as long as that is the case, you know that you can increase this, and you're not going to be battling your biggest, toughest competitor, and save you quite a bit of money. So this is kind of the very easy way in which you would use these two filters, and that's how I use them to optimize Apple search ad campaigns. Okay, let's see what's the next. I lost my mouse again. I always lose my mouse with this. Jacob is asking, wow, these are really big. I have 2 questions. I've read in your guides that 1, you can save keywords by splitting up a combination into 2 words, but also 2, that the combination can make sense since it's then weighed more. I'm not entirely sure what that means, but if I had to, if I think I understand this, and if I get this wrong, please correct me in the chat. So what you want to do is you always want to split up your words in the keyword list. In the keyword list, the one you put in App Store Connect, this is specifically for iOS apps. and Mac apps and everything Apple, you want to split those up because there's no additional value in having a keyword that is 2 words or 3 words or anything else. So the space does nothing. Meaning if my fitness is home workout and I put home comma workout, the algorithm is going to see home workout as a keyword all on its own. If I put home space keyword, it's not going to see home in other variations along with it. So you're getting really the same, but not at all helping any of your other keywords. So it's really wasteful. I don't know where you saw that the combination can make sense in the keyword list. In the name of the app, it can definitely make more sense. So if you're looking at the name, you're looking at the subtitle, or on the App Store, or on Google Play, if you're looking at the short description, or even repetitions in the long description, that's where you would want to think about those. But at the end of the day, the mechanics are very, very similar. So I would stick to keyword list, always split up your keywords. We have a tool that does that automatically and will then show you all of the variations that the algorithm sees. So if you're not sure, or if you're concerned that you're going to miss out on a good keyword, drop your keyword list into the tool and it will do all the analysis for you and tell you if there's also something that you can improve. Okay, let's see what's next. Oh, you actually gave an example on this. So this is the example that Jacob gave, meditation timer versus meditation comma timer. And everything I said before applies to this precisely. If it's in the keyword list, definitely have that comma in there. Otherwise, you're just wasting your keywords, or wasting your characters, I should say. Whoa, all of my comments are floating. There's a lot going on in the chat, but let me try and keep up. Let's see what's going on. Another question from Jacob. I'm going in order in case you think, in case you're not sure how I'm doing this, but I'm going to try and go as fast as I can. Second question from Jacob. If I'm limited on time, how important are localizations? If I have solid US and German localizations, how much of a difference would doing the other 5 make? 10% or 300%? And the answer is, I'm not entirely sure. It really depends on your app, and it really depends on your competition, and it really, really depends on the markets, and it really depends on how you're using your localization. So, for example, in the US, you can use up to 10 localizations, which is what I think this is referring to, and the 10 localizations could be used for English. Meaning, instead of localizing to the local native language of those localizations, like France for French, or French for France, French for French. In any case, French is one of the languages that you can localize into in the US, that is actually used in the US. So if you're using that localization for English, you can extend your keyword list. You can extend your name, extend the subtitle on the App Store up to 10 times. So if you're using that, the feedback that I would have is the more of those ideas and thoughts you have for keywords, the more you should use those localizations, because you'll eventually run out of characters and you don't want to confuse the algorithm. So use those as sets. And then however many ideas you have, or however many keywords you find from your list of keywords, those are the amount of localizations you should be using. Normally, people that I talk to do between 3 and 4. I'll usually do between 4 and 6, mostly because I reserve some localizations for like off-the-wall ideas, some crazy stuff that may or may not make sense. And if it does, then I bring it into the more main localization. Now, if you're thinking about localizing for the sake of actually localizing, that depends on your market. If you're making enough money from a certain market, then you may want to localize for it to be nice to your users. But if we're talking about the App Store page, look for the countries that you're not making, you're not getting enough downloads from, where your conversion is not as high as it can be, and then use that as best as you can. I did an AF chat with a guy who does A/B testing professionally, and did that for Google, and showed us how A/B testing the screenshots, and I mean localizing the screenshots for Google Maps in the UK gave them a huge boost, and how they went through a really long process of trying to figure out what they should be using. It was really eye-opening. I'll leave a link to that in the description later after this is done, so you can see it. It's super worth looking at, regardless of what you're trying to do. Okay. Alexander is asking, I'm struggling to enter the US market for iOS iPads. The app is quite popular in Germany, but US seems to be impossible. Welcome to the game. How to enter a new country if there are no ratings in this country? And the easiest way, and now what's becoming kind of the trend in doing this, is Apple search ads. if you can push your app just enough to get the ball rolling, you can find those keywords that will eventually help you spring up with the ratings that you would get from the downloads that you would pay for through Apple Search Ads. And there are many ways to do Apple Search Ads extremely, extremely efficiently. And a lot of those have to do with long tail keywords, something that I talked about in at least 2 previous live streams. So that's the kind of thing that I would do. I would look for the cheapest possible way to get into, with Apple Search Ads, to get on devices, on as many as I can. Optimize the time where I ask for a rating so I know that it's always the best. And then from there, once keywords start picking up and ratings start picking up, then you can start optimizing or make sure that your keywords are so proper that every additional rating helps. And these are all intertwined, so you should do everything at once and not do one and then the other and then the other. So plan everything and then move from there. One little thought that I would give you is there is a relationship between Apple Search Ads and ASO, not in the sense that most people expect. So your keyword list or the keywords that you pay for on Apple Search Ads don't actually influence what you would get ranked for organically. But if you're using Search Match within Apple Search Ads, the keywords you have in your keyword list will actually be used for that search match. So make sure that all of your keywords, whether it's the paid keywords or the keywords that you put into your metadata, all make sense before you do any of this. So don't just try to enter into a country without thinking about it. That's how I would do it. I think this is a very short answer. There are more thoughts that I have. So if you want a longer answer, drop a comment after the video is done and I'll respond to it. And if you can give me a few more details, I can also probably help with those. Ooh, hot chocolate. We haven't had that in a very long time. I thought this was a question, so I clicked on it, but no, we all know. Okay. Morsen is asking, my app's name is Dirty Games Truth or Dare. Ooh, spicy. But it seems like algorithm isn't picking up the keyword dirty games, but creating less popular variations. Any idea how to fix it? The idea is simple. Apple doesn't like things that could be potentially problematic in any sense. And that's why, for example, advertising an app that's a little bit more spicy on Apple Search Ads could get you a rejection, or Apple wouldn't actually allow you to advertise it, which is something most people don't know. So I think you don't really have a lot of options for ASO if you're trying to go against a keyword that isn't very liked by the algorithm. The alternative would be find all the other keywords that could help, that people are searching for, and then optimize for those. So it might be a very long tail kind of a game on the App Store side, or on the Apple Search Ad side, or on the Apple Search Ad side, but I think that would give you a lot more oomph when you try to optimize for discovery. There's something you can't fight Apple on. It's just impossible. Okay, let's see. Dean is asking, in regards to keyword placement, which one has more weight, subtitle of English localization versus the title of Spanish Mexico localization in the US App Store? And to my knowledge, it's the name, so the title. And it's always the name. I don't believe that Apple has a cascading type of or a tiered system for their localizations. A bunch of people ask me about this. I haven't seen any sort of difference between when a keyword is in an English localization versus a Spanish localization or French localization or Arabic or Russian. All of these are localizations that are supported in the US. So I haven't really seen any of those, which means that the name is always where you want to put most of your keywords, the most important keywords, and then cascade from there. I wouldn't change it based on the localization. One thing that I do when I do this, and this is more of just a habit more so than it actually having any impact, is if I see a keyword that I find to be really, really, really useful, or if I win a keyword, meaning I become number 1 or number 2, and it's very popular and I really want that to stick, I'll move it into my English localization. And when I say move it, I mean not delete it from the localization where it started and then paste it into the English localization in the same update. I'll do it over 2 updates. So update number 1, put it also in the English localization. Because localizations don't get merged, it's not going to be considered duplication. And then step number 2, in a future update, remove it from the other localization and use that localization to test more things. But again, I do it mostly because I want the keyword that I think is most useful for downloads for my app to be what most users see. I don't think it has a major impact overall, but I think it's just one of those nice to have, so why not type things. Okay, another question. A truck parking app. That's actually kind of cool. You need an app to park a truck. I've never really driven a truck, so I'm not sure about that. My truck parking app works particularly well in Eastern Europe in the Play Store. How do I get good keywords in Eastern Europe language with relative high search volume, SV? So I think it's just the same as pretty much anything else. Any sort of keyword research wisdom that I have will work exactly the same across any country, whether it's Eastern Europe or the US. You really are, I would say, you're really dependent on the tools, because with the tools you can expand on your idea. So something like Keyword Inspector would give you a good starting point, and then I would dive directly into competitor keywords. I have a guide on this, which if you go through, I'm sure you'll find a ton of really good keywords. I'll link to that as well, or I'll try to remember to link to that as well when the video is over. So check out the description later on, and we'll get to that. Okay, next one is a fun one. Yassine is asking, in Apple search ads, should you bid on your app's name? This is extremely controversial. I think it's an opinion more so than anything else, so your mileage may vary with my answer, but in my opinion, absolutely not. Well, why would you do that? And I say that from experience. I say that after losing enough money to realize that it wasn't necessary. Now, it really depends on your app. I think for most apps, what I just said makes a lot of sense. For some apps, it probably wouldn't. So let me give you two examples. One example is the Appfigures app. Appfigures has an app on the App Store. You should download it if you haven't. And if we advertise the app on our own name on Appfigures, when people come into the App Store to search for Appfigures to find it, knowing that they want the Appfigures app, they'll see the ad and they'll probably tap the ad before they tap the number one result, which is us, because you find us by name, and most apps are found by name at number one. So every time that we asked someone to go into the App Store and definitely download the Appfigures app, it cost us money, and it didn't need to. Because if you come into the App Store and you search for an app by name, and if your app's name is unique enough, unlike home workout gym equipments that we saw before, something like a MyFitnessPal, it would be very easy to find it at number one. You're not going to go to number two. You're not going to go to number three. So in general, you're just going to take that keyword, and you're just going to take the first app that matches, that looks like the name that you're looking for, and it's not going to cost any money. Now, in my opinion, that's the right way to do it. And I did a live stream with a few Apple search ad consultants over the last year. I'll link to those as well, because there are a bunch of big nuggets, a bunch of interesting nuggets in there, and most of them say kind of the same thing. But then you end up with a weird category of apps where either there's no unique name, like what we saw with home workouts, gym equipments, and then you should definitely advertise on all those keywords, because the app's name is really a bunch of keywords. But you also have industries where some of the apps are kind of synonymous. So for example, here in the US, food delivery is one of those, and you'll see food delivery apps fighting over their app names, their competitor names, because if you're looking for food delivery and you're thinking Uber Eats, you can also order from Seamless. It's kind of the same. So if there is something in the screenshots, maybe there's a promotional offer or something like that, they could sway you. And so for someone like Uber Eats, you'd have to advertise on your name, because otherwise a competitor might steal a potential user away from you, especially where it's still a land grab and users are still trying to figure out who's who. There isn't a single player in this field. Dating apps tend to be very, very similar. If you want to download Tinder, you're looking for something to swipe on. Bumble will give you something similar. There are a handful of other apps that will give you something similar. So there is a potential, there is a chance, some percentage, it might not be high, but there is a high enough potential that a user searching for Tinder will download a competitor that got them excited through the screenshots, through some sort of messaging that made them think, ooh, maybe I should try this instead. So those apps should definitely advertise on their name. Most apps, I don't think should. I think that's just a waste of money. So that's what I would do. Okay, let's see what's next. Okay, a very important question. Ralph is asking, where is my background? My background is gone. My background used to be a bunch of workshop tools. I don't know if anyone ever noticed this. There was a 3D printer and a CNC and a laser cutter all there. And they're still here in the studio because I like to have fun from time to time. But this is a brand new canvas, and I'm going to try and make this new and fresh and clean and cool. Like I said, if you have any ideas, please drop them in the chat or message me some other way. I'm always looking for ideas. I just did this, so this is why it's so bare. Axel was asking, does the algorithm concatenate two words, or should we add the concatenated words in the list? Example, log and book will rank for logbook, but what about logbook, a single word? So in my experience, you should put logbook, a single word, into the keyword list. And the reason for that is it's always difficult for the algorithm to make up words. It can make up combinations because anything can do that, but it can't make up words because usually most words don't combine very well. So I've seen it make a few combinations in the past. I would not rely on that as a feature of the algorithm. I would say maybe that just happened by accident, and instead really focus on, if you want that keyword, if this is a keyword that's important to you, make sure that you include it in the keyword list. And this is specifically for keywords that do not have a space and have two words. That's the only time where I would recommend to do this. So let's see what's next. Jennifer's asking, if I set my search ads to only show to new users, will that automatically eliminate users who have app tracking transparency turned off? That's a good question. I don't think I know that off the top of my head. I haven't really looked at that in a long time. I think once you start implementing some of the filters, you rule out users that don't have app tracking transparency, but I don't remember which. I'll have to follow up on that. I'll do that in a comment after the video is done, because that was not a question on Apple Search Ads certification. Maybe we need to talk to them about that. Okay, next. Axel again. So Axel is asking, what does it mean to target long tail keywords like weekly meal organizer? Having the full keyword in the keyword list, or letting the algorithm recreate it from single word keywords? And the answer to that goes back to what I said before. In the keyword list, you should never have keywords that are multiple words, meaning there should never be a space between commas. You should never have a space in general in the keyword list. The space character does not belong in the keyword list at all. So long tail, just in case some of you don't know what it is, it just means that it's a keyword that's made out of probably more than one or two actual words. So it's long. That's really what it is. And the thing about long tail keywords is, if you plot the number of people who are looking at keywords, kind of the popularity score, you'll see that their popularities go down very, very fast, meaning keywords that are just a single word will have a lot more popularity in general than keywords that have 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 words in them. And so they're really a long tail if you look at it on a chart. But if you do enough of those, as opposed to targeting a single really popular keyword, you could have a similar impact in terms of downloads. So if there's one keyword that can get you 1,000 downloads, and there are 1,000 keywords that can get you 1 download each, you really end up with the same thing. Now, this is an extreme example because 1,000 keywords is a lot of keywords, but if you have just a handful of keywords, maybe 10 or 20, that can give you a similar impact, they will be a lot easier to target, a lot easier to optimize for, and you probably wouldn't be battling the bigger competitors who are targeting the really big keywords. So from your perspective, it just saves you time, it saves you effort, and it means that you can compete and you can be seen in the top 5, where on the big keywords you probably can't until you have that momentum of ratings, which can come from something like Apple Search Ads or ads in general, or getting viral on TikTok. But if you don't have that, then I would go after the long tail keywords. It's a similar advice of what I would give to people who are trying to do Apple Search Ads and not spend a ton of money on it, or extract as many downloads as possible out of every penny spent, which is really applicable to anyone who's giving Apple money for visibility on the App Store, regardless of if your app is small and your budget is small, or if your app is huge and your budget is huge. You really want to have as focused campaign as possible. And there you would want to have all of the different ideas and all of the different keywords that you can think of, because that's going to generate a much more effective campaign. Oof, that was a lot of words. Okay. Axel again. Can you explain how to best use different localizations to cover more ground and focus on specific topics, domains, things to do or avoid? I have a whole guide on this, which I will link to later on, and I'm starting to forget what I said I will link to, so I'm going to have to rewatch my video and then do it. So give me some time. But The very high level idea, and this is something that I tell everyone who's trying to get to more keywords, think of your keywords as themes or sets. Try to make sure that you're not putting too many keywords that don't belong together in the same set, and then use every localization possible for each set. So I'll give you an example. If you're doing a home workout, gym equipments, gym equipment and home workout don't necessarily align in the same space. They're related, they're relevant, but they're not exactly together. Another idea for something like this is I did a live app teardown of the Expedia app on stage at a conference a few months ago, and they're doing hotels and flights and booking and travel, and they're related, but they're not exactly the same. So what's happening with the algorithm is it knows that the app is really good for all of these things, especially for an app like Expedia that has a whole bunch of ratings. But even for something like home workout, I believe they also have a good ASO, and so the algorithm will find it and will rank it in a place that is fairly high. But unless that keyword set is focused, it's not going to be as high as it can get. And so you're diluting. So think, how do I not dilute every set? How do I focus every set on only the keywords that match and then that are relevant? And then use different localizations for different sets. Localizations don't get merged, so you can repeat keywords as much as you need. I like to do, like I said before, a handful of sets and then maybe 1 or 2 localizations where the ideas are just totally off the wall. So for fitness, I might think about something that has to do with a very specific group or something that is a very niche use case and see if there's enough demand for it. You don't have to fill up all the 100 characters of the keyword list or the 30 of the name of the subtitle. So get creative. And this is probably something I need to do a deeper guide on, but I also have a guide on the name and the subtitle, which you can use to figure out what makes the most sense, what works, and how do I keep things focused enough. Okay, continuing. Ralph is asking, let's assume I just optimize my keywords and I have a good number of ratings and DPR. DPR is very important. How long does it take for the algorithm to rank me better? So let's zoom out a little bit or reverse a little bit. Just because you have all of these does not mean that you're going to get ranked better. It just doesn't. It depends on so many different factors and so many different options. The real question you should be asking is how long does it take until I see changes? And that in the App Store could be in a few hours after the deploy, could also be in a few days. I found that I will always see some sort of impact within the first 24 to 48 hours on the App Store. It takes a little bit longer in Google Play, a few days, but it doesn't mean that that's going to stay. So it might be that my app is going to rise to the top of a certain keyword really almost overnight. But if I don't have a good conversion from that keyword, it will slowly fade away. And so I like to give every new change that I make about a week before I really start saying, this is what it did. This is the impact. But I like to track it as quickly as I can because there is the possibility of updates ruining everything and just breaking all of your good keywords. And if that is the case, don't wait a day or a week. Just undo as quickly as you can, or with your next update, make sure that you reset this. But for the most part, about a week until you know what's going on. And then I would give it another week to really see it stabilizing. Someone recently asked if how many updates in a month is too many updates. And I wasn't really sure how to respond because the easy answer is 1. Maybe 2. You don't want to confuse the algorithm. And I know some people make more updates to their app, not necessarily to their metadata. But if you have that sort of cadence, then you can fix stuff. So I would use 1 update to set the changes, maybe another update if you want to refine them, but then every other update to undo if you broke something. Now, the amount of time also depends on the amount of changes. If you change one keyword that maybe merges with others and is kind of useful, maybe it will happen faster. If you changed all of your keywords and the algorithm needs to figure you out for the first time again, it might take a little bit more time. So within a few hours is most likely what you will see, maybe 24, maybe 48, and then a couple of days to a week until it stabilizes. And I usually give it about 2 weeks to really see what's happening. So that's how I do it. Okay, a question that I do not have a good answer for. What kind of a CPA would you expect from tier 1 markets? Some say 5% free to paid CR is good. With a CPA of 2.58, it gives a CAC of $50, cost of customer acquisition cost. How are you making profit from that in tier 1? I think there are a lot of numbers in here and they all make sense, but this is really specific to whatever your app is. So on fitness apps, you're probably going to do more. On non-fitness apps, on business apps, it's going to be totally different. On apps that are needed versus apps that you don't really necessarily need that you want, the conversion rate is going to change. So it really depends on what your competitors are doing if you want to build a sort of a benchmark. But realistically, I don't even look at any of that. What I look at is what do I need in order to be sustainable? So how much money can I spend on search ads or on paid ads, on whatever it is, whether it's in the store or out of the store? How much money can I put in towards a single, the acquisition of a single customer? That's really what it is. And there are two things you can do at that point once you have that number established. And that number you can see by your revenue. Take your revenue, take out all of your expenses, and that's whatever is left. If you are growing and you have investment, then that's a slightly different calculation. But for those of you who are not, who are trying to take what you have and not go overboard, there is an amount that you know in your head you can spend. Take that, and then you know how much money you can spend per user based on your metrics. How much money, what's your MRR, how many new users you're getting, and that's how you go up from there. So if you can spend what you need to bid, meaning the bid amount multiplied by your conversion rate is not good enough, it will not work for you. What you should do, and that's, I think, the key of how subscription businesses are, why they're so much different in both the good and the bad from everything else, is that you need to figure out why your conversion rate is not higher. Or you can figure out how to lower the customer acquisition cost. So you can take your Apple Search Ads campaign, clean it up, go after long tail keywords, try to figure out how to lower your spend, reduce, I would say eliminate all of your broad match keywords, eliminate search match, eliminate all the things that cost you money. And fun fact, Apple tells you to not use search match on any campaign that is not a discovery campaign. And most of us are not running discovery campaigns because those are the things you do at the end when you have money to waste. But instead, they turn it on for every campaign by default, something I don't necessarily understand. But if it's running on your campaign, please turn it off, save yourself some money. So you can save money on the Apple Search Ad side or whatever paid user acquisition channel you're using, or you can optimize your paywalls, make sure that you're showing them at the right time, and go after that. I just did a live stream with Jake from Superwall, who had a bunch of good ideas on how to get more conversions within your app. If you haven't seen that, I highly recommend watching it, and I'll link to that too later, which I will definitely remember. And I have a bunch of other videos like that. So you want to increase your conversion, decrease your spend, and that's really what it is. Don't go after what's a good conversion. A good conversion is really what's good for you. A good conversion is actually what's highest. And if your conversion is not every download is a paying user, that's what you should strive for. It's not realistic, obviously, but that should be your goal. Your goal shouldn't be let me beat the competition or let me beat the benchmark. Let me get to 1. That's how I see it, at least. Oof. Okay, many more words. Oh, wow, we have a lot more things in the chat. Let's see if I can get to more of those. I'm going to have to speed run through the rest. I don't even know where I was. Okay. So Anad is asking, as an indie developer with limited resources, what are the most impactful App Store optimization strategies I should focus on to maximize visibility and downloads for my app? And that is find your keywords. Find the keywords that work best for your app. Iterate until you find those keywords where you get sticky at, and those will give you downloads. I know countless developers who have told me that once they found those keywords, and it doesn't have to be many, they iterated and iterated and iterated, and eventually they landed on something that worked, and that really skyrocketed their downloads. The scale will depend on your app and the kind of niche that it's in, but really that's what it is. Find those keywords that work. That's really the goal. And then once you find them, either focus on them or just leave them and make sure that you remain number 1 or number 2 or top 5 of those keywords as you experiment with other keywords. That's really the key. I know it might sound super simple, and I'm not really giving you anything that you can go and implement right now, but that's really what you should be focusing on. I have guides for all of that, and if you look at the resources section of the site, you'll find a bunch of content for how to do that and the specific tools that we have, but the iterations that you have to do, and that's really the most important thing that I would recommend doing. Okay, Dean is asking, what are the special characters that App Store search algorithm counts as 2 instead of 1? Good question. I haven't talked about this in such a long time. So I found a long time ago a little bug in the App Store where if you're using certain characters, specifically characters that are more ASCII-ish, the algorithm will consider them as 2, while App Store Connect will consider them as 1. So you're going to be allowed to use them and push your app name or subtitle or even keyword list to the 30, 30, or 100 character limit, but they're really considered as two. So the algorithm is going to chop off whatever is left after those keywords. So ampersand is one of those. I believe I have a list in one of the keyword teardowns that I did. I'll find it a link to it after because I don't remember off the top of my head. But in my mind, pretty much everything that doesn't look like an alphabetic character is something that I would consider to be two characters, even if it's not true, just so I'm safe always. And then I wouldn't load the name or the subtitle or the keyword list all the way up to 30. So if you're using something like an ampersand or an em dash or one of those or little bullets, make sure that you're leaving a few characters empty. Now, in general, you should be focusing your app name, your keyword, your subtitle. So if you're focusing them, you're probably not going to run into that issue. 30 characters is actually a lot of characters if you're focusing, but if you're not, make sure to not go all the way to 30 on the App Store. I don't believe Google has a similar issue from everything that I've seen. Ooh, Derek asked me a question that I kind of just hinted about. Can you talk about not using all the characters in the keyword list to give more weight to the remaining keywords? And if you're a developer, this should make a lot of sense, but it should make a lot of sense to everyone. If you have 100% of focus, of something, of value that you can give to all the words that are included in a name, that's how the algorithm thinks. If you have one word, it's going to get 100% of all of that value. If you have two words, 50 and 50. If you have three, 33.3. If you have four, 25%. So realistically, because the App Store has become, and this is something that I saw in the App Store specifically, because the App Store has become so busy and every keyword now has results for the most part. There's still a few that don't, and those are great opportunities, but most of the things that we can think of have some sort of a result set. Because that is the case, the algorithm needs something else in order to figure out what the rankings are. So it uses ratings, but that's not always the best because two apps can have a similar enough number of ratings. It uses the position of the keywords, but again, that's not enough because two apps can have a similar positioning of their keywords. And if you look at dating apps or food delivery apps, they're all copied and pasted. They all look exactly identical. So the algorithm still needs something to rely on. And what it will do is it will try to take the number of words that you have and then give you value based off of those. So if you reverse engineer that, if you lower the number of words you have, you increase the value each one has and give yourself that additional boost. It's not always necessary. It really depends on the keywords. For lower popularity keywords, I probably wouldn't use that as much because it does limit you with what you can do if you're now using fewer words. But for higher popularity keywords, I would definitely do that. And because you can use different sets in different localizations, perfect. So instead of maxing out a single localization, think, can I break this up into 2 or 3 or even 4 localizations? It's a little bit more work and a little bit more maintenance. And going through all that in App Store Connect is definitely a pain. And we will make something to make it better, but it's worth it. So that's why you should not use all of the keywords in most cases. Let's see. Could you recommend some free and paid tools that would be helpful for keyword research, competitor analysis, and performance tracking? I don't know if this is a leading question. I think this is a great question. If you haven't already, you should check out Appfigures. We have both free tools and paid tools and a very low entry-level plan that will let you do a lot of keyword stuff. I actually looked at it yesterday, and I was surprised at some of the features that we give on our Connect plan in Inspector and some other areas. So obviously, use those. Next, I didn't pay for this. This is not an endorsement. Well, this is an endorsement of our tools, but it's not a paid question from the audience. All right, Jennifer is asking, I'd like to understand the age and gender breakdown of my users. In Appfigures, it says I currently don't have enough reviews to determine demographics data. How reviews are required? So there are many, many different ways to figure out. Actually, that's not true. There are a small handful of ways to figure out who's using your app. And traditionally, it's data that's coming from an app. So companies would steal data from or take data, usage data from within devices, and then try to figure out who that user is by the apps that they use on device. Collect all that, aggregate all of that, and then give that to you. Because we don't do any on-device data, and because this is kind of a nightmare for privacy, and this is the kind of thing that in the EU you probably need to show a whole bunch of notices about, we decided not to do that. what we do is we read all of the reviews that are written from your users for your app, and then we take those and we classify those. We built a whole model that classifies App Store reviews and Google Play reviews and can turn them into age and gender, or we go with gender expression in our case because it's spoken language, and that's a benefit in that case. So we can read reviews and figure out who's the person who wrote this review. Now, that's not the end, because on its own, that's going to give you just the demographics of the users who are leaving reviews, which is generally not everyone. And so we also correct for the bias by we have, I think, billions of reviews at this point across millions of apps, and we now understand the usage patterns, and we try to augment that and figure out, even though you only have this number of reviews that are, let's say, young male, in general, we believe that you probably have more of that user type, and that's how we give you those. And so if you don't have enough reviews, we just don't have enough data to go on. It's unfortunate, but that's really the only way to do it. We don't require a lot of reviews. I think it's less than 100 to get things started. But if you're not there yet, make sure that you're incentivizing your users to write a review. And by incentivizing, I mean just asking them, popping up the ratings and asking for a review. It's something that everyone should definitely do. Okay, let's see what's next. Angelina is asking, based on your observation, is average CPT shown by Apple a good measure to set up the exact bid, or should we go up 5 cents over or more to outbid the top bidder? It's complicated. The numbers that Apple shows you are all averages over some amount of time, so they're not what's happening right now, and it depends who you're competing with. But if you're competing with someone really big with a big campaign, they're probably adjusting their bids on a very active level. So what I would do is I would look at something like Search Ad Insights and try to figure out who's the winner in terms of share of voice, and then understand your share of voice over time. And we have different time scales, so you can see if that changes over time and use that in order to increase it. Because when you increase a bid, it doesn't necessarily immediately increase your impression. It takes time, and you need to make sure that your competitors aren't increasing at the same time. So it is kind of a race against yourself. Unfortunately, all of the bidding systems tend to do that, and to their benefit, obviously. But look at the share of impressions. That's usually what I go off of. And it doesn't have to be who's winning, who wears the crown, but it has to be how much better am I than others, and how is that changing over time. So that's what I would focus on. Derek is asking, how does the weighing work when talking about doing the other localizations, which is a question I answered before. It's very simple. They're all the same from everything that I've seen. So use them as you see fit. I put all the words that I think people will actually think about into the English localization, because I want them to see the keywords that they're searching for, to have that match in their brain, and maybe get to a download faster. But that's not a necessity. Let's see. Alayla is asking, I managed to win good keywords using title and subtitle. Great. However, I feel like it is impossible to utilize the keyword list even with good DPR. Should the keyword list only be used for 3-word keywords? I don't know exactly what that means. The answer to that is I think no, but you should never have, again, spaces in the keyword list. This seems to be a recurring theme, and maybe I'll write a guide on how you're not supposed to do that. But you're not supposed to use space in your keyword list ever, regardless of what it is: high DPR, low DPR, high popularity, low popularity. Just don't. It doesn't make any sense. So the name and the subtitle, the reason you're winning with them is because they are the most important. The keyword list has changed in the last few years. Well, changed a bunch over the last few years. So it was in the beginning very, very important, and then became much less important, then became a little bit more important, and then became not important at all because it was gamed by pretty much everyone a few years ago. We can see that Apple is slowly bringing it back, especially because we know that it does have some sort of an impact on Apple search ads, and Apple wants that. But in general, the name is where you would get most of that oomph that you need for Apple search ads, for App Store optimization, and then the subtitle, and then the keyword list. And it goes from left to right, so the keywords that you put at the end of your keyword list are going to be the least ones that get attention from the algorithm. And same for the name, the keywords that you put on the left, or the words that you put on the left, the beginning, if we're left to right language in this case, are going to get the most focus, the most value for the algorithm. So if you're maxing out all of your keywords, 30 in the name, 30 in the subtitle, 100 in the keyword list, the end of that keyword list is so far removed that when you look at the way that all the value from the algorithm is getting split up, there's just not much left. And so that's probably why the keyword list is giving you the least benefit. But definitely use it. It's definitely useful. And make sure that you just know that the most important keywords should always go in the name and in the subtitle. I'm going to take a little bit of a tea break so I can have a voice. And then let's continue. Before we continue, I should say, if you like what's happening here, please give me a like. I have a whole animation for this. I should say this, and you should always be promoting. You know what it's like. We're talking about promoting apps on the App Store. So please take a moment, give the video a like down below. The algorithm, always play for the algorithm, will know that this is a good video and more people will see me. And more people see me makes me happier, and also means that I will do this more often and be able to answer more questions, because there's so many questions on my screen and only 9 more minutes to go. But let's continue. Okay, let's see. So Tile Machos, I don't really know if I'm pronouncing this correctly, but is asking, how often should we update our app title, short description, and long description in Google Play? So Google Play is fairly similar to the App Store, and every algorithm is fairly similar. The more updates you make, the worse it is. Because if you think about it, there is some amount of time that it takes for an algorithm to figure out what's going on. You change the name, some other apps change the name, and it needs to reconstruct all of these searches all the time. So if you make a change and you then make another change and another change, you just don't afford the algorithm enough time to do that. I would say probably no more than 1 update per month, 1 bigger update per month, maybe 2 small updates, but that's where I would leave it. I think if you have an update and you want to refine it, that's okay. So for example, you rewrote your entire description and figure out all the little bits that you needed to, and you have enough repetition and not enough to make it seem like it's spammy, but just enough to make it seem like it's really important, and you worked on relevant and related keywords, that I would do once a month. If now you're tweaking that just a little bit, maybe you're adding another repetition, maybe you're taking away a few repetitions to make sure that it doesn't seem like spam, that I think you can do at least 1 more time per month. But I would try not to do more than those, just to give the algorithm time to do this. This is the same that I would give on the App Store, but in Google Play specifically, because you have more text in the description. And it's a lot more tempting to make changes on Google Play because you can make them and they're almost instant, unlike on the App Store. And so don't get tempted. Give the algorithm time to figure you out, unless you made something that ruined everything and then immediately undo. Immediately undo. Never tolerate any sort of negativity in your trends. Only tolerate if things are not going up as fast as you want. That's fine. If things are going down, immediately abort mission. Okay, continuing. Another follow-up question to that: when you have created a proper store listing, how much can ASO help organic growth? Does it even compare to ads? Those are 2 questions, so let's break them apart. How much can it help organic growth? This is organic growth, so I think the question is organic growth important? And the answer is, I know enough developers that don't do any ads and get many downloads specifically off of searches and being found. Apple says that 65% of all searches lead to a download, which I think is probably higher, but they're playing it safe. So you want to make sure that when someone comes into the App Store, and enough millions and billions of people come into the App Store, they have a solution. And if you are the solution, they will download the app. So organic growth is incredibly important, especially in the beginning, because the App Store does boost you. Google Play does things a little bit differently, but on the App Store, you get a boost in the beginning. So if you're launching and you're not optimized, you're just wasting about a week's worth of almost the equivalent of getting featured. Now, does it compare to ads? Absolutely not. Ads are completely controlled by you. You don't have to wait. You don't have to iterate. I mean, you have to iterate, but you don't really have to do any of those things. You take money and you throw it on the problem, and the number of impressions that you can get immediately with ads are likely higher, especially if you're expanding beyond just the visibility in the App Store. If you're doing Google ads or TikTok ads or really anything else, the sky is the limit. So they're not comparable at all. I think each one needs to be done as efficiently as possible. If you can afford it, a paid ad campaign could work, but it depends on your numbers. It's possible that acquiring your user is going to be too expensive. So you can get more impressions, you can get more downloads, but you're going to go into the negative in your bank. And I don't think that's something that most apps want. So make sure that you know what each one does and make sure that you're optimized for each one. Definitely optimize for ASO because you will get that boost. You will get that visibility. And if no one can find your app, regardless of ads or not, you're really just leaving money on the table, and it's not very difficult. Okay. A follow-up question that is easy: are Google App campaigns the most performant for apps, or should we try other campaign types? And it really depends on your app. It really, I know a lot of this, you would love for me to just give you the answer, and I would love to give you the answer, but it depends on your app, depends on your niche, depends on your users. Experimentation is really the best way to do that. It's possible that for some apps, the users will come from TikTok, for some from Facebook, for some from Instagram, and for others, maybe Instagram is not the best place to find users, and you do want to find them on the App Store. The reason why Apple search ads and on the Google Play side of things, Google app campaigns are so important is because people already come to the App Store. They already come to Google Play and they know what they want, whereas an ad on TikTok gets them to want something. So it makes it a little bit easier. I think they're important, and on Google Play, you kind of have to do them if you want to succeed. And so if you want to get those downloads from Google Play, so that's where I would go. But again, test everything. Okay, Ethan is asking, I have a question. My dad and I just launched our app. That's very cool. The issue is that Venera is a name I made up, and the App Store shows results for Venrada. How would you solve this problem? I don't think this is a problem. I think this is just a matter of time. The algorithm doesn't really know your app, and so it will take it some time to figure out that there is this keyword and that this keyword can be used to find your app. If you think about the algorithm, it always tries to find results, and it needs to do the best job that it can to find the most applicable results, because Apple cares about giving people what they want, getting that download. And so if it doesn't know your app, it may have had already a lot of wisdom on what to do with keywords that don't really exist. And in that case, it built a whole model for what it can find and what it can give. So now you're coming in and you're saying, just wait, I have the perfect app for this keyword. And it's not going to say, ooh, okay, great. You're like, let me think about it. So give it some time, and that should solve the problem. Also make sure that you're focusing on your ratings. Also make sure that you're focusing on your ratings. And that's pretty much it. The more ratings you have, the more you're going to be visible to the algorithm. The keyword is already in your name, and you're going to get found. The real question should be, is that the way you want people to find you, or is there more to it? And then you're following really all of the keyword advice that we talked about so far in the stream. Okay, an easy question. How to optimize the words in the description for Play Store Android? Not really an easy question, but a really getting started easy question. So Google, unlike Apple, cares about the description. Google is very good at reading large bodies of text because they scan the internet and they read all the websites. And so they treat the description not exactly like a website, but more similar to a website than you would think about. And in this case, you have several different tactics that you can use regarding the length and regarding the number of repetitions. We took all of those and we put them into a tool that will allow you to do all of that. So you drop your description into the tool, and it will show you all of the keywords that are being focused or being seen by the algorithm, I should say. And then it gives you hints as to what you're doing wrong or what you're doing well. And you can take that and you can adjust them. I don't have enough time to show you how that works, but it's on the left-hand side under Description Optimizer. And I would highly encourage using it. Now, there are more very specific and nuanced things that you can do specifically with the description. It has to do with the number of repetitions and the placement and where you put your most important keywords in the beginning and how you use lists. And the tool actually takes a lot of that into consideration. So drop it into the tool, see what it tells you. And that tool is free, I believe, so anyone can use it right now. Just sign up for a free Appfigures account. Highly recommended. And let's see, I think I have one more minute, so one last question. Jennifer is asking, is there a way to tell what ad platforms my competitors are using and how much they're spending? Not within Appfigures at the moment. That's a pretty challenging problem to solve with a high degree of confidence, and that's something we're trying to figure out and trying to do well. So that will come in the future. We had one version of this that didn't go exactly as we'd like, so we had to take it away. But this will come back in the future. Okay, one last question, even though we're out of time. W is asking, my revenue and customer went down when I changed my app icon. Oh, wow. It's an app that is 1 year old and gets about 30,000 downloads per month in Google and 10,000 per month in iOS. I didn't know changing an app icon. I don't know where the rest of the comment is, but I think I can understand what's going on. But that's really interesting. I think something very similar happened when Twitter changed its icon to X and made it black. And I don't think it's because it's darker or because it's different. It is because it's different. I think people are not finding it anymore, and that's why they're not seeing it anymore. But icons tend to give a sense of what the app is, and that's a whole feel more so than anything else. So that could be it. Is it possible that while changing the icon, something else changed? Maybe a keyword got dropped. Maybe something within the app was a little bit more buggy. Maybe that update caused something else that isn't just the icon. And if that's the case, I would look at that. But just the icon on its own causing you to lose existing paying users is kind of wild. That kind of sucks. So if you can give me the name of your app in the comments later, I would love to look at it and see if there's anything I can see that might be doing this. But otherwise, I would look for anything else that happened while making that particular change. And that's pretty much all the time that I had for you, all that I had for me, that you have for me. That's all the time we have together. I'm trying to keep these on time, but I haven't done this in a long time, and now I'm back. So we will do this again. I'm going to be at a conference next week. If you're in San Francisco for the App Promotion Summit, come watch my keynote. I'm going to be talking about trends in the App Store, including the most important trend that all developers should keep in mind and marketers. And it ties directly into Apple Search Ads and ASO. And if you read the newsletter, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So if you don't read the newsletter, you should go subscribe to the newsletter. There's a link to it in the description. It's pretty much all I have for you today. Thank you for joining me. This was great. And I will do this again probably in 2 or 3-ish weeks. So keep an eye out on your inbox to know when I do this again. I'm going to try and answer some of the questions that were in the chat in the comments if I have time. So if you asked a question, come back and check out the comments. And if I asked you to give you more information so I can take a look at more things, let me know in the comments later on. That's it for me. I will see you later.